Headsets are available at the entrance of the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pristina, the capital of the Republic of Kosovo. This is the third edition of the International Women, Peace and Security Forum. Please welcome your Masters of Ceremony, Dojna Mema and Ilir Deda. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pristina, the capital of the Republic of Kosovo.
Morning.
Mirëmëngjes dhe përshëndetje të gjithëve nga ky forum kaq madhështor. Duhet thënë që ka patur një pjesëmarrje të jashtëzakonshme përgjatë ditës djeshme, ku janë folur tema shumë të rëndësishme në një mënyrë frymëzuese, po patjetër edhe konkrete. Forumi ndërkombëtar mbi gratë, paqen dhe sigurinë kam bërritur në vitin e tretë dhe ditën e dytë të këtij forumi do të kemi shumë për të folur edhe performanca fantastike të cilat i presin vetëm pas pak.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the second day of Women, Peace and Security. We are very proud that we have brought the world to Kosovo to discuss about extremely important topics regarding peace, security, safety, women, inclusion, children, future. Yesterday there were such a large number of panels, meaningful discussions, panelists. We're honored to have special guests, and we hope that today picks up on where yesterday was left with the other part of substantive discussions, but we'll get back to that later.
Mbi gratë, paqen dhe sigurinë është shndruar në një vend takim global ku diskutohet mbi tema të rëndësishme. Në mëngjes patëm një tryezë diskutimi mjaft interesante mbi rolin kyç që parlamentet kanë në çuarjen përpara të kësaj agjende. Një diskutim që ishte frymëzues dhe konkret në të njëjtën kohë.
And today we also want to stress again the importance of parliaments, on inclusion matters, on peace, on designing policies, on overseeing the ones that are responsible to protect us, but also to offer lasting peace and inclusion. And today we will mark again discussions with specific topics such as security policies to gender inclusion in technology, from leadership in times of crisis to activism as a form of resistance, Every step today is a step towards a more just and safer world.
Dhe tani do të ndalemi për të nisur këtë ditë të dytë të forumit tek një artiste e jashtëzakonshme, por përpara se të flas për të si artiste do doja të shpenzoja dy fjalë për të si grua, sepse është një grua që vetëm mbijetoi, por edhe lulëzoi, një prej zërave më të jashtëzakonshëm që kemi në të gjithë Shqiptarinë, e cilësuar padyshim si zëri më i mirë ndër vitet të Eurovisionit, me një këngë e cila tregon se si mund të triumfohet mbi dhimbjen dhe se si mund të bëhesh një shembull frymëzimi. Zonja dhe zotrin, me sus Rona Nishliu.
And it's a great pleasure to invite a voice, a woman, an artist who will share with you a song about children, future, survival, and hope. Ms. Rona Nishliu.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pristina, the capital of the Republic of Kosovo. This is the third edition of the International Women, Peace and Security Forum. Please welcome your Masters of Ceremony, Dojna Mema and Ilir Dita.
It's a deep honor to be here today with all of you in such an important gathering led by our President, Dr. Vjosa Osmani Sadriu, where the voice for peace, dignity, and justice is being amplified. Thank you very much. Faleminderit shumë. Faleminderit shumë. Thank you.
Këto janë padyshim rastet kur edhe pse nuk flasim të njëjtën gjuhë të gjithë bashkë, jemi të prekur po një lloj sepse forma se si Rona Rishliu interpreton i te kalon të gjitha barrierat. Ne do të vijojmë me një tjetër moment frymëzimi, sepse këtë herë do të ndalemi tek zonja e parë e Antigua dhe Barbuda, e cila do të jap një mesazh shumë të rëndësishëm frymëzimi edhe ky mbi zhvillimin e gruas dhe solidaritetin ndërkombëtar.
That was such a moving performance, and Rona, we have only one Rona Nishliu. And to move on with the theme, we are deeply honored to invite the First Lady of Antigua and Barbuda to address us with a very important piece, a message for empowering women and international solidarity.
Madam President, Viozazmani, distinguished guests, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me first to express my profound gratitude to President Osmani, the President of the Republic of Kosovo, for her gracious hospitality and visionary leadership in hosting this remarkable forum. President Osmani, your unwavering commitment to advancing the women, peace, and security agenda is a beacon of inspiration for all of us gathered here. You remind us that leadership is not merely about holding office, but about holding space for voices too long silenced and pushing forward the boundaries of justice, inclusion, and peace. Today, I stand before you with a heart full of humility and a spirit shaped by personal experience. 2 years ago, I faced a moment that forever changed my life. I suffered a severe pulmonary embolism, one so critical, the medical consultants seemed to refer to it as size 30. I don't know exactly what that means. And they stressed that it was the largest one that they had ever seen. Without immediate intervention, I was told I would not survive. In those harrowing hours, as I lay in the hospital bed and the world seemed to flash before my eyes, I discovered a clarity that has never left me since. I realized how delicate life is, how quickly it can be taken away, and how we as human beings waste far too much precious time arguing over who is stronger, smarter, or more deserving between men and women. What mattered most in those dark moments was that my husband, Sir Rodney Williams, stood beside me with unwavering love and care. I thought he was here, but he's not here, but he did stand here. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Without him, I may not have been here today. It was then that I understood with deep conviction that the true power of our world lies not in competition between genders, but in the harmony of our efforts. We are not meant to stand opposed, but to stand together as partners, as equals, as co-creators of a just and peaceful world. Across continents, cultures, and histories, the lives of women have been shaped by profound inequalities. Women are mutilated in the name of tradition, thousands beaten behind closed doors, denied access to education, stripped of opportunities for work, and silenced in decision-making. These are not abstract statistics. These are daily realities of millions of our sisters across the world. And that is why gatherings like this, Women, Peace and Security Forum, matter so deeply. They offer us a platform not merely to speak, but to act. To act means acknowledging that peace is not possible if half the population remains excluded from its making. It means recognizing that development is not real if it rests solely on the paid, visible labor of men, while the unpaid, unrecognized work of women in homes, in communities, in raising children, in healing, in teaching, is dismissed as invisible. In many cultures, the dominant narrative has long placed men as the financial providers and women as the caretakers. But let me remind you, it is the unseen work of women that holds the fabric of families, communities, and nations together. Labor, both formal and informal, is dismissed. We rob our societies of their fullest potential. What I meant to say, and let me go over that, when women's labor, both formal and informal, is dismissed, we rob our societies of their fullest potential. We must also be honest. Balance is the word we need to carry forward. We're not calling for a world where women stand over men, nor where men continue to stand over women. We are calling for a fair world where the contributions of both are valued, respected, and harnessed for the common good. Balance is not weakness, it is strength. Balance allows men to bring their strengths, their perspectives, their ideas, and allows women to bring theirs as well. Together, this balance drives innovation, prosperity, and peace. Together, we can rewrite the security code of our generation, one that is not based on exclusion, violence, or domination, but on partnership, dignity, and mutual respect. One urgent area where we must act is in women's economic empowerment. Across the world, countless women remain without access to jobs, financial security, or economic independence. Without these, women remain vulnerable, dependent on systems or individuals who may perpetuate cycles of oppression. But when women are given the chance to earn, to thrive, they not only lift themselves, they lift their entire families and their entire nations. In my own life, I choose to dedicate my time and energy to support my husband's vision for Antigua and Barbuda. Though I receive no salary for this work, it is work. It is real work. It is real, meaningful, and deeply demanding. It is a reminder that the unpaid labor of women, whether in public service, family care, or volunteerism, is just as critical to the well-being of our societies as any paid position. Yet, this work often goes unmeasured, uncounted, and undervalued, not appearing in our economic data, not reflected in GDP, not rewarded in pensions or protections. We must change that. We must broaden our understanding of labor, value, and contribution. Today, I stand before you with one more proposal. Let us envisage a new international day, not a day for women alone, nor a day for men alone, but a day for men and women together. A day to honor the balance between us, to celebrate our shared humanity, and to remind ourselves that the only way forward is hand in hand, thought in thought, spirit in spirit. Excellencies, colleagues, friends, the challenges before us are immense. Wars rage on, children suffer. Women's bodies are turned into battlegrounds, and peace remains a fragile promise. But I deeply believe that we can rise to meet these challenges, not if we stand divided, but if we stand united, if we stand protected, and if we stand like one, carrying and sharing spirit. Let us leave this forum not just with ideas, but with commitments. Let us pledge to work together across borders, across cultures, across genders, to build a world where every woman and every man can live in dignity, in security, and in peace. Because in the end, when history writes the story of our generation, let it not be said that we played games of division while the world furiously burned around us. Let it be said that we rose together to build a future worthy of our children, our children's children, and even into the times of our great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren. Peace is not something you wish for. It's not something you make. It's not something you do. It's something you are, and something you share. Peace is the calling of all of us here today to love one another, to help one another, and to move forward with one voice and one spirit, one vision towards a more placid, powerful, and productive world. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to me. Thank you. Bye.
Nuk themi krah për krah njëri tjetrit.
Thank you so much for this powerful message of unity, of love, of mutual support to achieving the shared vision, shared goal. And maybe it's time to say, behind a successful woman, there is a man. So, thank you again.
Ne do të vjojmë patjetër me panelet të tjera, konkretisht po bëhen gati 3 panelet cila do të zhvillohen njëkohësisht në hapësirat e ndryshme të forumit. Tu gjë rast të kujtoj edhe të gjithë ju që doni të shpërndani në rrjetet tuaja sociale momente të bukura, prekse apo që ju kanë ngacmuar apo frymëzuese gjithashtu nga ky forum, mund t'i postoni në rrjetet tuaja sociale duke përdorur hashtagun #WPS-RKS2025. Ju kujtoj gjithashtu që ka një panel përmbyllës shumë interesant sot në orën 16:45 me fëmijët dhe një koncert përmbyllës në orën 20:30 në sheshin Skënderbeut.
And as we kick off with the discussions, a few housekeeping reminders and general information. There are 3 panels simultaneously that will go on, and these are the first panel, Post-War Resilience, Reclaiming Lives and Reconstructing Futures, which will happen here at the main stage. The second panel is Towards Justice, Strength and Survivors. The third panel is WPS in Action. And I must remind everybody, the last panel is at 4:55 p.m. With children, as is the theme of these 2 days. So we wish you a successful and productive day and great discussions. Thank you again.
Përshëndetje, apo dëgjoj? Am I good? Dear all, it is my pleasure. It is my pleasure to invite and welcome everyone, both in the audience and in the panel, to continue the important conversation on empowering war-affected youth investing in future peace builders. We are continuing a vital, urgent, and a timely dialogue. Yesterday's sessions, I believe you all agree with me, they moved us, inspired us, and also reminded us through powerful stories and lived experiences by many in the room who were affected by conflict. I hope that the lessons drawn will not, remain as lessons, but they will be used to break the cycle of violence. And that will come in shape through important decisions and investments that will lead to transformative and lasting peace. Today we will focus on a topic that is too often overlooked, and that is youth affected by war. This panel will explore why investing in youth is not just a recovery strategy, but also very imperative for peace building processes. Just a short introduction. I'm Pramvera Lipovica, for those that don't know me. I work with NDI and lead gender and inclusion programming. And for more than 18 years, I have witnessed how when we invest in inclusive democratic development, youth leadership, and post-conflict reconciliation can indeed shape long-term change and resilience in our societies. Today we are joined by a remarkable panel of leaders and practitioners from policy making to grassroots activism, and I look forward to discuss with them and with you, if time permitting, to discuss challenges, opportunities of rebuilding after war. Together, we will explore how to turn adversity into agency, especially for youth whose lives have been shaped by violence and displacement. So it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Ayanit Besiri, Mayor of Morba, a local leader advancing inclusive governance. Welcome. Saruanda Bogujevci, Member of Parliament of Kosovo, a powerful voice representing the lived experience and enduring trauma of war, and an advocate of justice and inclusion. Velma Šarić, founder of the Post-Conflict Research Center, a key voice in narrative change and trauma-informed storytelling in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Moriko Hori, Vice President of Women's Federation for World Peace, who will offer a unique intergenerational and cross-cultural perspective on youth empowerment and peace activism through global women's leadership. Welcome. And last but not least, Angelusha Morina, our very own, from the European Council on Foreign Relations, from whom we look forward to hear on strategic view of regional security, EU policy, and the long-term role of youth in peace and policy frameworks. So to manage our time effectively, and I know we are already started a little bit late, but I would like to invite maybe each panelist to share initial reflections, maybe in 2 minutes tops, on exploring, the first reflections could be on why investing in war-affected youth is essential for sustainable peace, and then we can maybe move on with follow-up fronts where we can explore solutions, and also we can discuss if you have any forward-looking actions that you propose. And I'm really hoping that if time permits, we can also take a question or two from the audience as well. So maybe Mr. Besiri, we can start with you. Why do you believe that investing in war-affected youth is important, and would you also add maybe on some of the most pressing challenges that young people face in their development and participating in society?
Yes, first of all, thank you very much for this invitation. Thank you very much for having the chance to talk and so many people of Kosovo today. But as I see, there are international guests here, and I would like to share my impressions about my election campaign in Morbach in Germany as the first mayor of German community that was born in Kosovo. I am a child that was affected by the war in Kosovo in 1999, and we moved in 1994 from Mitrovica to Germany to begin a new life. And my impression is that the youth generation and the older generation that is about 50 age old, they don't have any idea about war and conflict zones in Western Europe, because they are thinking that these are some bad guys that they never had seen before in their life, that came into your house and rape you, that came into your house and take your things away. But actually these are neighbors that you lived in peace for a long time ago, and that change when political power changes. And that is important to explain, that political power leads into authoritarian power, and we need to take a resistance against that. And I'm very proud to see that so many young people are in uniforms here, in police uniforms, in army uniforms, and they engage themselves in this country and they contribute to this country. And as I can say to our international guests, youth, investing in people who want to save peace is never a lose investment. It is a winning investment. It's a win-win situation for all the people who are living here and abroad, and I would encourage everybody to invest in these topics, especially in areas where people never had any contact to war or conflict zones.
Thank you for these key reflections. Ms. Mugavitsi?
Thank you, Pranvera. It's really lovely to be with all of you here, and thank you for the invitation to be part of this panel. I can speak about this subject in so many dimensions, from personal experience, from being directly involved in politics, but also a whole journey, and I'll try and explain a little bit more. I had a little bit of the same experience as Arianit at the beginning of the 90s. We moved with my family to get a better, safer life somewhere else. We moved to Sweden. Unfortunately, we were sent back, and some years later, towards the end of the 90s, the war fully broke out. The reason why we moved is because a lot of our human rights were taken away. My school was taken away. My father was thrown out of work. The situation was getting worse. And then in March 99, unfortunately, the worst happened, where my family was massacred. Out of 21 people, only 5 children survived. The rest were women and children that were killed. I was 13. And after the war, I was medically evacuated with my cousins to the UK. And then a different journey began. So throughout my youth, it was between recovery, being in a new country, learning a new language, trying to go to school, but at the same time, fighting for justice. We were very fortunate as a family that 2 of the men who participated in the massacre were in a trial, and in 2003, just as I turned 18 for the first time, I gave evidence in a trial in Serbia against 2 of the perpetrators. 2008 again, but also we testified during the Milosevic and Vlastimir Djordjevic trial at the ICTY. So for me, now as an adult, but also having sort of a more direct involvement in terms of policy making and so on, I see things maybe slightly different to then. But also my needs were very different then to what they are now. And the needs of youth that are impacted by war were slightly different then to now. So I think we have to bear in mind these journeys and what we do, whether it's through organizations, whether it's through policy making within or decision-making within government, that there are different aspects in terms of how you address youth needs. I always say that we forget that the young people, children and young people that get affected by war, they are the next generation of leading the country. So what we do and what we set in place for them makes a difference in then how that future is shaped. And I think this never gets talked about. It's just some children, some young people, they've gone through this, and we know everything, we make the decisions, and we have to be very careful, I think, in relation to that. So we have different responsibilities. But then again, also, what about the youth that come from the previous youth, so now I have a son, he's going to be the next generation, and how it impacts him in relation to how I dealt with the war and the impact of war. It makes also a difference. We've had a lot of really great work that's taken place in Kosovo through our wonderful organizations, where also it looked the impact of the next generation coming from victims of sexual violence, for example, from the war, but also how we treat the young people who come from families who fought during the war as well, that's also very important. And then there's another aspect. For example, there was a lot of work that took place in Kosovo with organizations when it comes to exchange of youth between the Albanian community and the Serbian community, which I thought was really valuable. But one thing that was forgotten is what about these exchanges within Kosovo? Youth within Kosovo from different communities, and not only Albanian and Serbian, I would say also the communities, because they were also impacted, that I felt that more actually should have been done in that aspect as well, in how we address and how we learn from each other in the impact of war. Sorry, I'm throwing all of these elements, and these really need time to be addressed quite thoroughly. But as I said, there's so many dimensions of it that can be talked about, and I know we don't have
definitely
a lot
wants
of
to pick
a lot
more
of
your
time.
brain on that. So
But
maybe the second
just
round.
another thing also, and I will conclude with this, is that also now for me, being in a position where I'm part of the parliament, and also I come from a party that's also part of the government, is that there's other aspects, youth employment and opportunities are created in education and so on, and how that also impacts and shapes also the future further. In relation also to our experience, because sometimes things also get down to that, Thank you.
Keep those thoughts, because we're going to go to delve deeper in that direction. Ms. Farish, please.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And I'm coming from Bosnia. I'm also going to share a little bit of my teenage period under the war and siege. It wasn't pleasant. I do know that it really did affect me as a teenager a lot. And then the work I did later from 2003, almost 22 years, it's carrying a lot of transgenerational trauma. So if I would speak about why it's important, I would start it from peace and security first, because we would invest in prevention, and then we need to work toward transgenerational trauma. One good example of this and how much is important to work with youth and young people, and how important the role of women, especially mothers, in this process is example of these incredible women you awarded yesterday, mothers of Srebrenica, the women of Srebrenica, and I'm deeply grateful to President and government of Kosovo for awarding these women, because beside the huge fight they had for justice and reconciliation and searching for missing people and fighting this difficult fight, they also raised their children without revenge. They raised their children. After genocide in Srebrenica, around 8,000 children stayed without fathers and any male figure. And these women, they were rural women from eastern Bosnia. Majority of them were housewives. The fact that they were able first to organize themselves into the women movements, the organizational movements, and do this whole incredible process of post-conflict reconstruction in our country and the region, but also to raise their children with no revenge. We never had any case of revenge. It's a huge contribution to security and peace. On the other hand, we also have incredible children being born as a product of rape. The children who really did decide to break the stigma and silence and speak loudly and influence judiciary processes. And this is also why it's important to invest in children after war, because they grow up, they can contribute in transitional justice processes as witnesses. You just mentioned your incredible role, and I know because I did follow the Hague Tribunal how much your testimony contributed in these processes, and this is justice. So I would say we should invest as much as possible because of the future, but it's also because of the healing transgenerational trauma and through this working on prevention through education.
Thank you very much, Ms. Horia.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Moriko Horia. I'm the president of Women's Federation for War Peace International. We're UN NGO with the general consultative status, and we have 128 chapters all over the world. And we're women's NGO. We're trying to empowering women to be the agents for peace building. So thank you for the invitation. And this is my second time coming to Kosovo. And my plane was delayed yesterday, so today is my first day so I missed the whole great things yesterday, but anyways, I'm happy to be here. About your question, I think it is crucial to invest war-affected youth because these young individuals often carry the burden of past conflicts, yet they also hold the potential to share more subtle future. By providing them with education, vocational training, and physical support, society can empower them to become productive citizens rather than allowing them to fall into cycles of poverty, violence, and radicalization. Today in this panel, I would like to talk about this case study of Rwanda. After the Rwanda massacre, there is a very positive practices. And so I hope I can introduce that. And maybe I'll later explain what happened in Rwanda, but within 100 days, almost like 1 million people were killed, and 500,000 women were raped, and many children were left genocide orphans. So during the genocide, children suffered immensely, and many were deliberately targeted for murder, torture, sexual violence, and some were killed alongside their families, while others witnessed the brutal deaths of their loved ones. The perpetrators justifying killing children by claiming they were the future threats. So children in what we did as an NGO, we provide vocational training for these genocide orphans. So maybe after the question,
definitely,
I will explain.
maybe in the second round, Ms. Morina.
Thank you, Pranvera. Thank you very much for including me in this panel. It's such a distinguished panel with real life cases, I would say, that so much fit to the topic. But I would also like to express my gratitude to the President of Kosovo for organizing this in three years in a row. For me, it's great to be home always, but it was a little bit disheartening to see that we still discuss war. Even 20 years after, or more than 20 years, in fact, 25 years after 99, we are still talking about war, the traumas of war, the healing, and all these other processes that should have been probably dealt with properly years ago. But since we are in such a format that my intervention has to be a little bit shorter, what I would like to focus on maybe a couple of points. So at the moment, I attended a panel yesterday on global security. And one of the panelists started his intervention with, "We live in unprecedented times." And then the other panelist, an ex-NATO official, went a step further saying, I have to be honest, these are really bad times that we're living in. So I think that's first thing to maybe bear in mind. We are living in really unclear times, not even dangerous, but it's very unclear where things are heading, and especially with regards to peace building and security situation. So we are in the region where open conflict maybe is closer than it has ever been since '99. And we are not really, very kind of strategically dealing with these or addressing these issues of security in the region. And here I particularly want to emphasize there is no clear strategy whether NATO and EU have an approach to the neighborhood, to securing and consolidating the neighborhood. And I mean Eastern neighborhood, where Ukraine is, where there is a war at the moment, and also Western Balkan neighborhood. And so to link this with the topic of today, I think what we are witnessing more and more is the fact that we really need resilient societies in this day and age. And a resilient society only starts if we all collectively have an understanding of what building positive peace is. And when I say positive peace, I want to particularly pick up the terminology that was used so cleverly by Johan Galtung. So positive peace is basically what the types of Saranda would have needed after the trauma that she had to go through. So basically socioeconomic conditions that would address all the issues that these types of people who went in Bosnia as well. We also have a very real life case here. But they did not exist. So in the cases of Saranda and Ariani, they found solace elsewhere, outside of Kosovo. And then, and this is my maybe last point for now, and this is the beauty of it, because now they come back and they contribute to the society, to hopefully building more resilient societies. But I think the greatest bit here would have been that they never had to leave because the conditions were here after '99, but they were not. And so I'm hoping that these these conditions would be kind of, to be borne in mind for building the resilient societies that we need for this day and age.
Thank you to all for these very powerful insights, and I'll definitely maybe building on what also Ms. Morina said, that we do live in unclear times, if not calling them different, and also on your strong point that we need to build resilient society. So maybe now we can go and discuss from each individual experience on what's actually working on the ground. So what the experience, what do institutions and communities are doing so to ensure that not framing youth solely as victims, but actually transforming, enabling them to be the peace builders and the ones contributing in the peace building processes. So again, maybe we'll start with you, Mayor Basiri. Since you work in local governance, and that would involve integrating equally diverse communities, including those who share backgrounds of migration, conflict as well. Can you share maybe practical examples from your everyday work on how, on municipal level governance, where youth were engaged in policy and they were able to actually make changes for them and for their communities?
Yes, of course I can, and it is very important to mention that the daily routine of the people is important. That means that people want to have a daily routine and they want to have the possibility to make it. And after that, the youth, they want to have a response from politics. It means that they are not confident with the local playhood, for example. They want a new football field in their community, and they ask the government, they ask the mayor and say, Mayor, dear Mayor, please build us a new football field. And now I have got the possibility to make these things happen, because in my opinion the deputies, excuse me for that, but the deputies are not the ones who are in the ring fighting with the people or sparring with the people. The deputies are the one that frame this area. They are going to build this ring. They are going to decide whether a person is in this ring and can engage itself in this ring or not. But the mayor is the boxer. The mayor is the one who is going in direct contact to the people. The mayor is the one who has got the responsibility to give answers about the daily routine of the life. And there are easy ways for a mayor. I can say the deputies, they are totally shit and they don't do any good decision for us, and so for that reason I cannot do anything for you, but a good mayor will find solutions, will talk to the deputies hand in hand to build a responsive youth possibility politic, and that is our goal in Moorbach, and that is our goal, that should be a goal all over the world. And I am very afraid of the development in this time, because people are thinking that a strong hand can solve their problems. And we saw in history that the strong hand, like the Second World War, that led into the Second World War, go into a catastrophe. A strong hand is always good if it solves my problems, but a strong hand can kick me outside the ring as well, and very fast, and we cannot see it, and this is important to mention again and again. And I would say we have to build a narrative to make peace sexy again, and this is our goal as politicians. This should be our goal.
Thank you so much, and I'm so glad that we also have Ms. Bogoyevsky in the panel, so she can immediately give us also her perspective, dual perspective, survivor, but also coming from national politics. And maybe you can expand, since you also started in your entry remarks, on how can governments ensure that they do not keep these narratives only at the listening level, but translate them into policies that actually work on the ground. And you also mentioned economic development, so I would invite you to expand on there as well.
Thank you. I have to say there are good mayors and bad mayors, but also there's good deputies and bad deputies. We're not all bad. No, I mean, of course, I was the director for culture, youth and sports, actually, during the Vedvendosya first mandate. And that was actually my first job within the institutions. So I've had experience in both levels. I think when it comes to policies in youth, and I mean, this is not just covering youth that have gone through war and, and that it impacts only them. This is a continuity. And so it has to be an inclusion. And I still believe in that it's not about just what we think is the right thing to do. It's when you start working together. And I have to say that, I feel really proud that I am part of a political party, but also now within institutions that has this in mind and see it as such. So if we sort of stop at the politic level, we've taken measures specifically towards youth, and especially because one of our biggest promise was youth employment, and that's very important, I feel. And of course, that in any aspect, economical empowerment, it's very important. I mean, this is also what we talk about when it comes to victims of sexual violence. No one wants to have some form of benefits that they can live off for the rest of their life. No one wants that. When you talk to everybody, they want to have opportunity where they can work, where they can thrive. Some want to go off and do bigger things. Some want just to live their daily life in their own society and have a good life there. But that doesn't just entail in relation to good jobs and so on. It's good health, good schooling, good environment to live in. All of these play a role. And that's where we have these responsibilities as institutions to provide for. But then also we do it together. I think also it's a mistake to think that the institutions are there, we are here, that's your responsibility, this is my responsibility. No, we live in the same society, so working together really makes the difference, and I think creates better opportunity, and this is what I found from my experience. I mean, I remember, because as I said, also when I was at the municipality, I also had youth. And I always saw youth integral to every part of the work that we did. So, you know, you couldn't just say, oh, we're doing projects in youth. No, within culture you have youth, within sports you have youth. You know, all of these are integrated with each other. But also what happened, for example, for a long time is that when things were budgeted, something was budgeted, and then sort of young people were involved. They were told, okay, this is for this and this is for this, and you know, and we started to change that. I remember, for example, when we had a group of youth, and it was for the Youth Day, and I said, okay, bring in the project. You have the money. You do what you want, but you've got to do it. So, you know, let me see what you have. And they really struggled because they were not used to having that kind of opportunity and freedom and so on to decide for themselves. So, you know, we had to work together on that. But yet, these are just some of the examples. But I really think that we have a fantastic youth nowadays. But also nowadays, we have another struggle in relation to youth, and that's technology. As much as it is to our advantage, it's also playing quite deeply to the disadvantages and dangers within that, including security as well, and including peace, and you know. So, so also as legislators, I think we also have to start thinking quite actively in terms of also how we make sure that technology is also used in the right way, and then it doesn't impact not only youth but people's lives in a negative manner. I know there's some work that's sort of been taking place in the European Union level, but I think there's a lot more that we have to do, but also here as well. And I still think that, you know, if we really want to make change, it's where we start treating each other equally, and we have equal conversations, and we have to believe a bit more our youth and what they also can give to society. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now maybe we can go to the civil society, very important role also on this matter. So maybe, Ms. Šarić, we know that your center uses storytelling and multimedia as tools for reconciliation. So maybe if you could draw in some specific examples from your work where these narratives enabled youth from different communities to challenge divisive and or victimizing narratives in Bosnia and Herzegovina or in any other post-conflict context.
Yes, I mean, Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's quite specific, to be honest, considering that we have these 3 different narratives about recent war. We have 186 ministries, but we don't have a state ministry for education. We have a very fragmented country where a majority of young people, unfortunately, are trying to leave the country, a massive brain drain, the biggest youth unemployment rate in Europe. So considering these challenges, and very recently, for example, the entity of Republika Srpska changed the educational curriculum and incorporate Radovan Karadžić and Ratko Mladić, convicted war criminals for genocide in Srebrenica and war crimes in Bosnia, as the heroes for youth. We really do struggle a lot with how we will actually do any form of formal education. So majority of work being done up till now is work done by civil society. And there is many great examples, not just by Post-Conflict Research Center, which is my organization. We do know, for example, the Youth Initiative, Regional Youth Initiative, and many other colleagues who do majority of work. One another example of pure segregation we have through education is this phenomenon of 2 schools under one roof, which still exists in Bosnia. There are 56 schools in Bosnia, The kids go through segregated system into same building, but they are completely separated through curriculums, are creating a lot of challenges. So what we try to do is first to educate young people as much as possible into searching and finding information outside of the classrooms, outside of these transgenerational narratives, which usually are burdened with the war trauma, not from latest war, but sometimes from Second World War too. Considering the complexity of Bosnia, we try to do as much as possible these mobility programs and bring young people from different communities to spend longer time together through longer intervention, where we try to educate them in different forms of journalism, for example. There is a great example we did, Balkan Discourse, which is a pan-ethnic multimedia platform, where young people learn about journalism and photography, and then they are reporting from their communities about things which would usually never ended up in media. There is a lot of us trying to promote positive examples and positive stories of people who, for example, during the war, were risking its own life and saving friends and neighbors. But recently we had a great development with some lessons from Holocaust, because in the last 10 years we were looking into work with the educators through the country, from both entities, and we built up a manual, Holocaust and Peace, looking into some lessons from Holocaust and seeing can we replicate certain things and learn about human rights, memorialization, some of these things which educators unfortunately don't have enough material to learn. So what I want to say, we try to work multidisciplinary through academia and media and many different disciplines, just create some initiatives that they could create changes.
Thank you. Very powerful stories. And now maybe Ms. Hori, building also on what we heard from Ms. Charish, now from a global lens, intergenerational, also cross-cultural aspect of your programs, can you maybe share best practices or your lessons learned that enabled the youth empowerment, not only symbolically, but structurally, since that is the objective?
Okay, thank you for the question. As I said before, today I'm going to introduce the case study of Rwanda. And Rwanda, the post-war conflicts are very serious. So I think, I'll introduce the government's attempts and NGOs' attempts. As governments, they have to end the hatreds in order to bring peace in their community. So what they did was they had a gachacha code. It's a very famous way of treating perpetrators. The government asked the perpetrators to confess their sins, whom they killed, where they buried. And so that, the victims, now the victims, they're asked to forgive the perpetrators. So confessing and forgiveness. And that was the amazing policy they had. So through that, because the Hutu and Tutsi are the ones who, had conflict. But in the country, they have to live together with harmony. Otherwise, they're going to bring another conflict. So the healing and forgiveness is very crucial points that the government, actually they put in policies. So also they erase the ethnic distinction in their identities. So they're all Rwandans, no matter how ethnic background they have. So that's another point. And also as NGO, what we did is, there's so many countless genocide orphans. They have nowhere to live, and they have no hopes. So in 1994, right after the genocide, we sent 10 Japanese members to Rwanda, and we asked local people, what can we do to help? And their request was, please give vocational training for the genocide orphans so that they can get some skills and they can get jobs, and eventually they can get self-sufficient. So we started to build a vocational school in Kigali. So we empowered them with the education, and it wasn't enough actually because of the stress and mental PTSD. So we also had like mentorship program, and also we had an alumni organization so that the graduates of our schools, they became the mentors to help the young ones. So we had so many different projects to help multi-dimensional cases. So, yeah,
thank you so much for this very important perspective. And maybe now we can again come back more close to our home. So maybe Ms. Morina, at the intersection of policy, diplomacy, and regional peace, are there any mechanisms that you would name that are actually working, being that on EU level or regional level, that are channeling successfully the voice of youth into strategic and meaningful policy and peace-building conversations?
Yes, thanks, Pranvera. I think many important topics were mentioned here, or aspects of how to offer all the conditions so that youth can act as agents of change in the post-war settings. But one aspect I would like to maybe pick up, or one and a half in a way, is that it's really important that youth has the proper space to participate in policy making, in decision making. Basically, political participation for youth is key. And I say this for a couple of reasons. Recently, we have seen a surge in disinformation, different disinformation campaigns all over the place, not just in the region. But in the region, I think one aspect that stands out is the malign influence that we have seen in recent years from different actors, such as disinformation coming from Russia, for example, but there are also other types of disinformation happening in the region. But there is a phenomena in Europe, if I could take this example, but also across the pond in the US. Youth is voting more and more in a radical way, in a radical manner. I mean, radicalism is not always bad, but voting in such a way that it's kind of going against the trends, against the future perspective that we need to build resilient societies. For example, in Germany, something like 30% of youth voted for AfD, which is a neo-Nazi, basically, party that has seen surges in numbers in recent years. In the US, it's a little bit more than that youth voted for this type of Republican Party, the MAGA part of the Republican Party. These are all very bad news because, and I link this with disinformation because there is a lot of, people sitting on social networks. That's where most of the disinformation takes place. So there's lots of fake news happening and all this malign influence coming from all sorts of places. It's pushing young people to think in different ways that sometimes might not necessarily be the right way to build resilient societies. And have youth act as agents of change in these settings. So I think if the conditions were to be such that youth is more attractive to participate in decision-making, political participation of youth, but also to be more aware of all these different phenomena coming from all sorts of places that don't necessarily have the right intention. I think these are the two aspects that I would single out.
Thank you, very important ones, and I think it's a really strong reminder on why that transformation doesn't happen in isolation, but it takes continuous effort and innovation, like it was also brought through very practical examples by each of the panelists here. Maybe now we can, we are near end and we can go with final comments, but since we will not be able to get any questions from the audience due to lack of time, maybe I can offer one or two comments on the same question that I'm going to make to the panelists. If anybody also wants to contribute, you are more than welcome. So we'll start again in this row, Mr. Basiri. Is there one actionable recommendation or priority that you believe should guide programming or policy that will ensure that youth are not only supported in humanitarian, let's say, phases and crises, but they're actually, their leadership is embedded in peace-building processes continuously?
We have got some demographic issues and threats in our society. That means that society is going older and the youth are going to be the minority. They were always, but they are going to be a bigger minority. And the problem is that this is a democratic problem because the representation of democratic, the idea of democratic was always that one person, one choice. One person, one vote. And that means that if young people have only one vote and the older generation have about 3 times more votes than the younger generation, it is a democratic problem. And for my expression, it is more necessary to implement the Constitution. Children and human rights would be necessary, in my opinion, if we want to have a sustainable society.
Thank you so much. Ms. Bogojevska.
I think it's, there's really been some really important aspects and points that have been made here, and this sort of goes back to our experience post-war and the steps that need to be taken, but also more specifically things I've been mentioning on what we're facing today. And another thing is that with these developments, so Angelusa has made some really, really valid points in relation to youth today, but at the same time we are also seeing wars and conflicts taking place. So it means that how do we deal with these youths in the very near future with everything else that is taking place now. And it takes me back to where societies were in the late 90s when it came to opportunities that were given to myself in relation to dealing with war and coming out of that. So we are living in very different times and circumstances, and these youth will be facing very different circumstances than myself. Maybe I will stop in a more personal aspect of what worked for me, for my family, but also for others in similar circumstance. I was very fortunate, as I mentioned earlier, to be medically evacuated to the UK, so I managed to have the right treatment that I needed, physically, for physical wounds. I was given opportunity and support during my education, so going back to school and everything that I needed there. But then I was given opportunity to tell my story. I was given opportunity and support to fight for justice, to continuously later on also tell my story, and then coming back home to then giving me the opportunity to be part of the institutions, and then more directly in politics, where I felt I could give more contribution, but especially in these subjects of how we create opportunity for young people like myself, then to be able to positively contribute to society. Unfortunately, what I've learned is that in majority of cases, this doesn't happen. So I was the lucky one. And I'm the rare case of that. So then this really, I think, needs more attention in terms of that what we've learned out of this, what we give now, but then also considering the new circumstances that we have in today's societies and how we address that. And we have a very, very large, unfortunately, young people who are going to come out of wars in the years to come, and we have to really be aware of what we do, because we live in a world where I think we all have collective responsibility to make it a better world, regardless that we come from different countries.
Thank you so much, Ms. Scheidt.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with my colleagues, great points. And I mean, us working with the youth, primarily, it's a really challenge now to engage, considering that we, as you mentioned, and it's definitely what we are fighting with, we didn't even go in artificial intelligence and how we will deal with these all new challenges regarding also as educators, how to attract young people, how to keep them engaged, and how to include them in the process of change making and making them as agents of change. But what I would say that I do strongly believe, especially for our region, but also for our European future, is mobility. As you just mentioned, the possibility to live somewhere else, to meet people, to interact, to be educated, to think out of the box, does provide young people with a lot of knowledge and experiences they need to think more globally than on the grassroots level. So I strongly believe that our European EU future will bring at least possibility for young people to travel a lot, to maybe leave sometime and come back to their homes and bring some new knowledges. On another hand, as educators, for us is always to try to look how we can again work together and this interdisciplinary approach, and how we will cherish and preserve in history the experience we have and we need to, like, carrying through history from children who've been born and they are witnessing these important historical moments. Because if we take a look the history of Holocaust and the role which, when unfortunately witnesses are dying, their children and grandchildren are playing in the process of dealing with the past, is extremely important to think on that note too. So yeah, I stop here.
Thank you. Ms. Hori.
Thank you. From my experience with the genocide orphans, the most important thing is giving them hopes for the future, because they lost everything. So first, of course, we give education, but education is not enough. We have to teach them about peace, because now they're going to be the leaders of the country. So peace education is very important, but within the peace education, what we teach is how to forgive others, how to forgive themselves. And this is very important, and this is very new. And I learned from the Rwandan government, the peace value education. First, you have to forgive your enemies. That's not easy, but once you do that, you can, feel confidence within yourself, and you can be the peace leaders. So this is new concept maybe for many other countries, but the peace education in Rwanda is very remarkable, and it has helped for young people, victims, to be the peacemakers in the future. Thank you.
Ms. Molina?
I think I would say, as final remarks, I completely agree that there is a proliferation of conflicts that we are seeing, that we are living through. And of course, the development in IT technology, especially in information technology, makes it so challenging to have proper tools and means to steer the processes in the right direction. The fact that you, Velma, mentioned there are 3 narratives in Bosnia about history. This is really worrying in itself. So how do you deal with complexities such as those? But of course, peace education is one of the ways to go. But I would say maybe also leave with a question mark. It's really important who teaches the peace education too. And this, I think this is one of the points that we made as a panel. It's very difficult to face all these challenges and to provide the youth with important and necessary tools to be the agents of change. If you have wrong people teaching peace, and we talked about these examples, then it's
Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is anybody in the room that would like to make a brief contribution, comment? Is there? Can we bring a microphone here and here? So 2 comments, and then we'll conclude our panel. Mikrofonin a bënd luta? Super.
Thank you so much for the brilliant presentation and the experience. I just want to quickly share a brief example from my context about the involvement of youth, especially taking into account the difficult security situation. I come from Cameroon. I'm Sylvie Dormo. I'm also the international president of WILF, the world's oldest feminist peace organization. We have, considering all the challenges with youth, especially in difficult contexts, we have come out with a concept, youth influencers for peace. Because in our context, for example, Cameroon and Africa, and in some other countries, because of the pain, the harm of the youth, they're involved in some violent activity, especially on social media. They are instrumentalized, so they are used to promote hate speech and tribal speech and so on. So, because they have a huge potential, we are investing in them, giving them the tools in non-violence, teaching them also to use that potential to be peace ambassadors. So that's why we have created another concept, which is youth influencers for peace. Because generally in our context, when we talk about influencers, they see it very negative. But we want to give a positive connotation to the word influencer. So these youth, what do? They are trained to use the social media to organize on a regular basis campaign to promote peace, social cohesion, to fight hate speech, and to educate their peers. So that's what they do on a daily basis. So it is a very important context that I think is worth really spreading, because it gives them the commitment. All the youths who are trained to be youth influencers for peace, it starts by themselves. It's not, by themselves. They have to be models in the community. Of course, we also ensure that we give them the tools in order, like capacity in other things. But most importantly, they are a reflection of the positivity of youth in the community in terms of building social cohesion, fighting hate speech, and promoting peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this perspective, and maybe if we can also bring the microphone to the lady here.
Thank you so much, moderator and the panelists, for your insights. My name is Sara Sofia Siren. I'm a member of parliament from Finland. And I also want to talk about youth. I really feel that it is the job and task of us adults, us decision makers, to create a vision of a better future for the youngsters. The lack of hope, the feeling of hopelessness, it's a big threat in many societies. It's a democratic challenge in countries where the youngsters are a minority, the younger generation is smaller, but it's also a democratic and a security issue in countries where the younger generation is bigger, as in many countries in the global south, where the population is very young and there is, for example, a lot of youth employment. There is a direct link to security and sustainable development. So a very, very important topic in pretty much around the world, all countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And with all these thoughtful contributions, maybe I'll only share my key takeaway, or an immediate one, because there are so many. But I would say that we are all speaking for the fact that if we are serious about peace building, I think we have to also be serious about investing in agency, in well-being, and also in the leadership of youth, so they can lead these processes and ensure that these are long-term peace processes. So thank you again to our esteemed panelists, not only for your contribution today, but for your continuous commitment to this agenda. Certainly, big thank you to the President Osmani Sadriou and fantastic team at the presidency for enabling this platform. And I invite you to carry forward these insights, but not only as reflections, but as actions. Thank you again.